Welcome everyone to Planetary Gig Talk. I'm Jefferson Glassie, your host, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is creating unity through music, but as I like to say, making connections through music. And that is what this discussion is about, connections through music. Oh boy, I am so really proud and privileged and pleased and happy and everything else that Melani GG is here. Namaste, Melani.
Namaste, Jefferson.
Oh,
Thank you so much for having me.
This sure thing. You're like an apparition from some other time zone or something there. So this is just really so special. As some of you may know, I was in India for my 70th birthday and staying at the Devi Music Ashram in Rishikesh. And the synchronicities just abound. I mean, it was a magic carpet ride for sure all the way around, and life still is that, I think, if you think of it that way. But I was in the I was there, and I found the place 3 years ago. So I was just there for a month, and a lot of people come through the music ashram, and how you know about it, it's sort of this little place in Rishikesh. How did you end up in Rishikesh and at the music ashram?
I first came to Rishikesh maybe 7 years ago for yoga, which is pretty typical as a reason to come to Rishikesh. And then I had known about Devi Music Ashram, but hadn't really explored it. And this time around, I was coming to Rishikesh to work at a children's home, Ramana's Garden. And I also really wanted to study the sitar. And so I thought it would be amazing to spend my time living there while spending my days at the children's home. And I actually brought a sitar back. I had an amazing time studying it under Raj at Devi Music Ashram. And yeah, it's a very special place with the kindest family who runs it.
Oh, so kind. I mean, and Devi and you know, we had this crazy situation where I said, let's go to Greece. And they said, yeah. And so I ended up spending 10 days with Devi and a good friend, JD, who was doing camera work in Greece. So, but I really wanted to get back there. So it's a magical place. So I remember we were sort of in the breakfast area, the dining hall. And, you know, people come through and you say hello and might have a conversation about this or that. And I think I was mentioning to you or somebody somehow that I brought the book When the Drummers Were Women by Lane Redmond to contribute to the Music Ashram's library. And you were like...
I hadn't heard that name in years, but I was well connected when I lived in the Asheville community. Very close to someone who spent her last days with her, and connected to the group of women who were dedicated to that book and spreading that knowledge. So it was so refreshing to hear that name and to bring her amazing research back up.
Oh my gosh. It's such a profound book. I mean, I think it's on my list of, you know, top 2 or 1 or 3 or something in terms of how much it really means for humans and society. So that was one synchronicity.
Absolutely.
And so maybe we could go down that rabbit hole, of course, and maybe we will. And then there was the I was reading a different book, Sand Talk by Tyson Yunkaporta, about, I think that the byline is how indigenous thinking can save the world. And I was mentioning that, and had the book, and somehow that came up, and that ties in with things that you're doing.
Yes,
right?
I currently am based in Utah, and I work with local indigenous communities and trying to bridge the awareness of their music and tradition. And I was very excited that you also are interested in that.
It's so profound when he says how indigenous thinking can save the world. I think that's absolutely true, because it was indigenous thinking that brought us to where we are. Though there may be a little bit of an imbalance in some ways, but it's so profound. So that was like synchronicity number 2.
Yeah. They keep on rolling. They keep on rolling
They
in.
were rolling. So then as you know, the kind of the days went by, I was there 3 weeks, but over the course of a month. And I found you looked up on Facebook or something, and saw that one of our mutual friends with Biko Casini with Rising Appalachia. I'm like, you know Biko? Oh my gosh, how's that possible? How did you know Biko and them, Leah and Chloe?
Yeah. Again, I lived in Asheville for a while and then I moved to Atlanta and we were running in very similar inner circles. And I have so much respect for the music that they make and bring to the world. I liken it sometimes to that of Nina Simone's music in that it's so um, socially appropriate and strong and also unique. And um, Nina Simone's one of my favorite musicians of all time. So
Yeah,
I really feel so connected to what they're bringing to our community today.
yeah. I agree. I think they're my favorite band. I've been to see them a number of times in different cities. What the message they bring is amazing. Their voices are amazing. And it was Biko who told me about Victor Wooten's book, The Music Lesson,
Which has
probably,
had
and
a
it
huge impact on you.
totally changed my life and my understanding about music. And his audiobook and the spirit of music and that audiobook, I mean, wow. And just knowing Victor and going to Wooten Woods for camp and all that, it's just been amazing. So there was another synchronicity. And then let's see. Oh yeah.
The terrace.
Yeah. I used to love to go at the music ashram up on the roof in the afternoon and watch the birds, and it was so beautiful, the mountains and all that. And I was playing this song, "Sing to the Mountain" by Elephant Revival, and you walked by and started singing the song along with me.
Yeah, it was so special to hear that in the middle of the Himalayan mountains. And we
And,
just started harmonizing without speaking. It was so beautiful.
and I'm like, how do you even know that song? It's not like exactly a top 10 song, but so that was so many synchronicities, and we have more,
Things are just about everything.
yeah. And we want to talk a little bit more about indigenous things that you're doing, and the Council of Music Shamans too. Um,
Yes.
but let me start off with the question I normally ask, because I'm always so curious: is how did music come into your life? I mean, were your parents musical? Is there music around? What kind of music? How did you start? What instrument did you play? What was sort of your trajectory in music?
My family is not very musical. However, I popped out of the womb singing and dancing and moving. And music has been an integral part of my life since before I could speak, apparently. So singing has always been number one. I've been singing since I was very young. And as I've gotten older, I love playing and moving with different sounds, whether it's an actual instrument or sounds of nature or sounds of the way that I walk. I love playing with sound and the way that we can all harmonize with one another, which relates to our music shaman conversation. But music is life to me, and it is so important.
It really is important, and just to sort of verify what you were saying. I mean, around the music ashram, you would be singing and dancing and going here and there, and I mean, everybody thought you were just such an amazing person, and you're off
Oh,
doing this and that and helping out at the children's place, which I never didn't get to go to, but next time.
next time, absolutely.
Um, and it is, I don't know, that the music ashram is amazing in the sense that it's classical Indian music that we're imbibing and learning, and so you play guitar as well, I think,
Which
and
is so rich. Classical Indian music is so rich. Yes, I do. I have fun with the guitar and the keyboard, percussion when it's needed. But my most favorite instrument is definitely my vocal cords.
oh, then that's the one of the best. That's the best. And even for my birthday, my actual birthday, we went to Maharishi's
Yes,
ashram, and then did a concert back at the Devi Music Ashram after Raj played. And it was so special because, the tabla player, he hung out and he played, and Raj played a song, and you got up and sang a couple songs, and Annie did a couple of songs, Annie Beach of
it
Jam
was
Pack.
such an honor to sing with Jefferson on his 70th birthday. That was one of the highlights of my entire 3 months in India at this time.
Oh, oh,
In fact,
thank you.
I was quite emotional because it was just such a heartfelt moment.
Oh well, everybody being there, and it really was special. So you've just been musical your whole life, and that's sort of your perspective on yourself. But what do you see of the power of music in other people? I don't know if you have any examples, or whether you can just say, "Oh my gosh, yes, this is what taught me about the power of music." What is the power of music? What have you seen of it?
Absolutely. I mean, humans blow my mind with their creativity often and what we are capable of. And I've been influenced by so many people I've just passed along my path. However, I think a big part of me being a vagabond, an explorer of the inner and the outer worlds, is connecting to how humans around the world relate to music and to
Mm.
sound, and whether that's traditional sounds or folk, or whether that's creating something totally new, inventing a new genre, whatever it is, like how are we evolving with music, I think is so important. And that is another reason I'm really, really intrigued and fascinated and involved in Native culture now, because their connection to music is so deep and in communion with nature and with ancestors and the past and the future, and bringing healing and ceremony. And that's,
Wow, that's right. Can you explain a little bit more about the native or indigenous affinity, whatever, the closeness with music?
yeah, it's often quite ritualistic. It's very sacred. There's a lot of songs and music that cannot be heard by others because it is so sacred, and is said to bring them to these heightened states. And oftentimes there's always a meaning behind it, whether you're, connecting to a great grandmother, or trying to bring on rain or sun, or in healing, in death. I mean, every song has this profound meaning. And I think that that is music, right? And that's oftentimes what modern music is lacking, is this deeper connection to
Mm.
spirit, to source.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Um, and one of the things in when the drummers were women that Lane Redmond talks about was you know the ancient when the drummers were women several thousand years ago, when the drummers, when the women were the priestesses and the goddesses and all that. It was they did do ceremonies. They were not just playing the drums to hang out and play some tunes on a Friday evening. It was part of the sacredness of life. And gosh, I was just watching this thing with Paul Stamets, and he was talking about they used to put the mushrooms to preserve them in honey. And Lane talked about honey and the bees and the
Mm-hmm.
ceremonies, and they would play music to become sort of in a trance, go into an altered state. Um, and
Actually, her
then go
circle of
ahead.
women in Asheville are beekeepers, and they still are very closely connected to the bees.
You know, and Elaine also explains how the patriarchy came around and basically told the women they couldn't drum and they couldn't sing, and then next thing you know, they couldn't own property. They were property, and they couldn't vote, and yada yada. And we're here, and that's another topic, but it is tied into
Precisely.
music.
And I think that's the metaphor of the rhythm, and the women being the drummers is the metaphor of the women being the rhythm keepers of life, the heartbeat of society. And I think that that is something that has also we're far from right now. I think we're getting close to it again, but that's, I think, what that represented in the women's being drummers.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I mean, I've for a while I've been writing and doing things about, we want to bring peace to the world. This is my goal, bringing peace of mind for myself, peace to the world. And if you tell somebody that, they say, oh, good luck with that. But if you say, well, we're trying to figure out how we can bring peace through music, they go, oh, that's interesting. I can understand where you're going with that. But in terms of bringing peace to society and harmony to society and balance, it's the divine feminine in music, in all things, in creativity, and
right, represented in all people and all creatures. It's not just women, of course.
Right. So there's so many good things about this. So the other question I like to ask about music is, so what can we do to help promote the power of music, tap into the power of music to make a better world, more harmonious world, more balanced world, whatever? And I know that you're doing some things through your indigenous people's work, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that, the powwows, or anything else that you see in terms of what we can do.
We need to connect entirely as a human unity, of course. And I think an amazing way to do that is through music, through dance, through these forms of self-expression that come out of our innermost being. So I am really enjoying at the moment acting sort of as a bridge between the native world and the colonizers, I like to say. So at the moment we've just formed a new 501c3 called Cultural Fire Events, and we're pretty much bringing these large native gatherings, such as powwows, to primarily white areas. And they're all inclusive so that many people could experience it and be a part of it and connect through it. So that's the work with the native led nonprofits. And then on top of that, I think on a personal level, I'm not much of a speaker or preacher, but how do I show up in the world, right? And how do I bring positivity and music and harmony within conversations and within connecting? And to me, that is of utmost importance to continue to show up as I would like to see the world become.
And, how do we get more people to show up? And that's the big question. How do we get the people to, maybe not be so swayed or affected by fears, and turn more so toward oneness, toward love, toward that connection that we have?
I like to think that it's a ripple effect, and that the more that we are genuinely showing up in the world with that light and positivity and optimism and love, the more that becomes the reality around us. And I don't know the secrets of the universe or how things work, but I know for my own universe, this is how I find more light and a higher vibration whenever I am breathing into the world.
Wow. Anyway, so important what you're doing, and let's see, you have a powwow coming up, don't you?
Yes, we have a powwow in the Salt Lake City area, in Heber City, actually, on June 3rd and 4th. And all are welcome. Hopefully, if you could come, please do reach out to me.
That would be great. I would love to, except for I have this one thing I have to do on that same weekend. It's my son's birthday as well, but too many conflicts.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks.
And we have another one in Moab in the fall, in October. So
yeah, I would like to do that one, depending on the
awesome.
dates. I think I have to be in Colorado. But anyways, I don't know when anybody will see this video podcast, but if it's before those dates, let us know and see if you can make it out there. That would be really wonderful.
I think it's we for some reason have come up with this truth, or this illusion of truth, that we are all separate and separated and different. And I don't know at what point that became such a predominant factor of thought and mind. And I would I would love to work to eradicate that. There's no separation.
Yeah, and in some of my writings, I wrote this book, Heaven is Everywhere, and I came to the conclusion, it was triggered by Jerry Jampolsky's book, Love is Letting Go of Fear. And I spent many years trying to figure this out after my own midlife crisis. What is love? What is fear? What is forgiveness? And I came up, to me, I mean, love is oneness, but fear is a perception of separation. And,
Beautiful.
if you go with love, if you go with oneness, if you go with us versus them, all of us versus them, or you versus me, that's a good way to go, I think.
Agreed. And this is what brings me again and again to India and to Indian culture is I feel they are still far closer to this other serving mentality in that there are no others. And within there being no others, there is no self. And I think that the West is pretty drenched within self-service only.
Yes. Another thing that I've been thinking about India, I mean, it's typified kind of by the traffic where it's just completely insane and people are driving
Chaos.
every which way and honking their horns, and there's this and there's cows in the road, and there's stuff you have to walk over and trash and everything, but everybody seems to get along. It seems like it's a perpetual second by second opportunity to learn the lessons of forgiveness and patience.
Somehow everything is in order. And I've witnessed less accidents in India despite the complete and utter chaos of it. I think somehow they flow in this perfect chaos and harmony. And I also learn so much every time I'm there and hope to bring it back to this culture and this mindset.
I love the sort of the East-West connection. One of the reasons I ended up in Rishikesh was because I had been a meditator, TM meditator, and I knew Maharshi had his ashram there, and the Beatles went there in 1968.
Yeah.
And that was a huge moment when you think about it. How in the world did that happen? That maybe the most popular band on the planet ends up in little Rishikesh, which, 50 years ago it's grown now, but
Little.
probably little, but what a sacred space. So you were also really instrumental in a project that we've been working on, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that and get your perspective. But it's
Jefferson, are you still in Rishikesh right now? It certainly looks like it. How'd you get back so quickly?
This is the Ganga. It's a picture I took from the foot of the Divine Hotel.
Jai Gangama.
Oh, it's something. So I had been thinking, as is what happens, and this friend of mine, Victor Wooten, introduced the world, well, to me. I learned about him, Michael Cott. He was the inspiration for the teacher Michael in Victor's books. I met him at Wooten Woods. I interviewed him for the podcast one night there at about 1 a.m. And it was the most incredible, profound interview that I've had. It's like an hour and a half. And later I went out and visited Michael. We did a planetary music project show from Santa Fe, and Michael kind of arranged it. And I got to meet him and know him a little bit better. And I came away thinking he is a music shaman. He knows things. He's so in tune with music. He knows things. He has the ability to change people. And I thought, wow, well, if he's a music shaman, who else is a music shaman? Well, Victor Wooten and the Wooten brothers. And then I happened to be on our screened-in porch with our dear friend Lionel Cole. And I said, well, Lionel, you're a music shaman. He said, well, you're a music shaman too. And so then we started thinking, well, who else are music shamans? And would it be helpful for somebody to realize that they were a music shaman, maybe that they might gain confidence in being able to bring more of what they have out, they may keep to themselves a little bit. So I just decided we'll have a Council of Music Shamans meeting in Rishikesh.
Mhm.
So Lionel ended up not being able to make it, but we did do that the day after my birthday. We sat in the library, and the assembled Council of Music Shamans was me and Annie Beach, the amazing Annie Beach,
Yeah.
um, from Arizona. Boy, she's such an inspiration,
Powerhouse.
powerhouse. And Dr. Pramod,
Mm.
professor, the father of the Nidhi and Devi and Raj,
Founder of the Devi Music Ashram.
founder of the Devi Music Ashram, and Melani G. And it was really I didn't know what to make of it. I kind of thought, is this really silly having a Council of Music Shamans meeting? Who am I to say that I'm a music shaman and all these people are music shamans or whatever? But, we started off with the words that come before all else, which
Thanksgiving.
the Thanksgiving address. And I think, boy, more meetings should start with gratitude like that, shouldn't they? Oof.
Oof.
But we had a great conversation. I don't know if you could talk a little bit about that, and we could talk about what we kind of set up.
We did. Well, we were talking about how music can be used to bring a more harmonious world generally, and what it means to be, whether you're the musician or the listener or the audience, and how that is a symbiotic relationship, and you need the entire cycle in order to create the shamanism of music. And basically that there are musicians and there are sound healers, and how can the two be fused together and merged, and how can we elevate this concept so that all people who create sound or connect to music in any way, aka every human, how can we use this to bring up the love in the world and the peace in the world?
It was kind of a profound, bold thing to think that you can do, but we thought we should try. And what we ended up doing was setting up a Facebook page, which
Yes.
seems a little bit, I don't know, run of the mill, or I don't know what, inane or
It's the
something.
way these days,
But
social
we
media.
we put it out there, and the idea, and anybody listening who would like to be part of the Council of Music Shamans and therefore be a music shaman, you're welcome to join. But it's meant to do a couple things. I think one is have a conversation platform for topics like the ones we're talking about today, questions and different issues, and be able to tap into expertise of these music shamans, like the women frame drummers, and people around the world, to just continue to have this discussion and bring up more vibration and intention around it, and also to help people realize that you're a music shaman, you can change the world. I mean, you
It's
can
our
do it.
birthright.
It's our birthright. Exactly. Oh boy. So anyway, that was real. I'm so thankful to you for joining in with that, and supporting it and being part of it, and we'll just keep on this magic carpet ride.
Absolutely. And I would love to spread the message of the music shamans and who wants to be involved, and how can we all work together and continue the conversation and uplift one another. That's what it's all about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely what it's all about. Um, I think we could talk for hours and hours. I don't know if people want to listen for hours and hours, but one thing I did want to ask you about, just because I've been thinking about it, I don't know what the answer is exactly, is, I mean, we know that music can change our minds. You're having a day, you get into the car, you turn on the radio or whatever your sounds are, and you can be completely transformed in terms of your perspective on the world and your feeling. So we know that, and you can go to a concert and you get jazzed up and you see the music, and it's profound. But boy, when you lay down for a sound healing, or which I did it, they do at the Music Ashram, these sound healings. Kiara was the one who was doing it for us. We had some great sessions, and the shamanic holotropic breath work, and these things where you you literally do go into an altered state just from sound.
Via sound.
So how do you view music vis-a-vis sound healing? There's different types of sound healing, of course. What is the difference between watching somebody play music and having those Tibetan healing bowls and the sound all around you and changing your cells at a molecular level and all that? How do you view that? The sound healing is music, right? Or
I suppose all music can be serving as a healing tool. I think there are people who use heavy metal as healing. I think that it's really dependent on the person. However, there definitely are frequencies that have been proven to do something to our brain and the thoughts that we have and calming them down. For me, something I use a lot is mantra, the ancient Sanskrit words that are repeated over and over, or I'll use Hebrew or sometimes even English or Spanish. And how can words and sounds be repeated to elevate your consciousness? I think that it's a very personal thing, and I don't think it would be fair for me to say this is sound healing and this is not, because it's so subjective and dependent on what the person how they work.
Yeah, but certainly very profound effects in different ways, and clearly a path to change and to becoming
Path to change.
more
Yeah, even
harmonious.
if it's not to become elevated, sometimes I will use music, and especially instrumental music, because I'm sad and I want to feel my sadness. So I think it's just a way to connect with our inner heart and what we're feeling, and whatever that is, music can amplify that. No pun intended.
Okay, well, thank you for your presence and your wisdom and your energy and everything. I mean, you really are like an apparition there. It's kind of beautiful the way that you set this up here. You're like a divine Indian dancer or musician goddess. But we will continue and have more conversations. We'll stay in touch. We'll keep the communications going with the Council of Music Shamans. And
yes,
I'm thinking about going back to India to the Devi Music Ashram next year. And if you are,
100%. Yeah, may this only be the beginning.
yeah, hopefully it's the beginning. It's like the first time I met Annie Beach on a virtual Spirit of Music camp that Victor Wooten was holding. She said, well, I just turned 75 and I'm working on my 25-year plan.
Yes. So inspiring.
Yeah. And now she's on to her 20-year plan, but she's so inspiring, and it does give me inspiration and hope that there are a lot of years and that we can make a difference through these connections and the community of musicians and music shamans and artists and others. And thank you for, lighting into our lives, and
Thank you, Jefferson. Thank you so much.
Great to know you, and thank you for taking the time for this podcast. And we will, see you soon, and more to come.
Continue to fuel one another. Yes.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you so much for having me. What an honor.
Oh, it's great. Okay, so namaste.
Namaste.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Planetary Gig Talk. See you soon.